In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire, under the leadership of Genghis Khan and his successors, was rapidly expanding across Asia, bringing unprecedented military and political changes. While the Mongols conquered vast territories from China to Eastern Europe, they also turned their attention toward the Indian subcontinent. During this time, Punjab and northern India were seen as prime targets because of their wealth, resources, agriculture, and key trade routes, especially Delhi. Delhi was a major trade hub connecting various important regions. Merchants from across the world, from Central Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and Southeast Asia, flocked to Delhi to exchange goods. Indian products such as cotton textiles, silk, spices, and precious metals were traded for horses, weapons, silk, and luxury items from distant lands. Delhi's markets were always bustling with diverse goods arriving from different regions. The trade port near the Yamuna River facilitated the flow of goods, making Delhi a crucial stop along transcontinental trade routes. One of the most attractive sectors for traders was the silk and cotton textile industry, which flourished during this period. Fabrics like muslin, a soft and fine silk, were especially prized. Various cotton and woolen textiles from India were exported to faraway places such as Persia, Egypt, and even Europe. Naturally, all that wealth ignited the ambitions of the Mongols. Unlike India, they did not have a flourishing agricultural society or complex village systems. They had no fixed cities. Instead, they moved freely and used war as a key tool to expand and maintain their power. Their goals were simple: take tributes and treasure from the kingdoms they conquered, acquire the latest technology, capture beautiful women for their harems, and recruit the most able-bodied men for their military. The Mongols didn't just invade, they often wiped out entire civilizations. To give you an idea, during Genghis Khan's invasion of the Persian Empire in 1222, millions were killed in major cities. 1 million in Urgench, 700,000 in Merv, 1.7 million in Nishapur, 500,000 in Ray, and 1.6 million in Herat. Altogether, that's nearly 6 million people from just those cities. It is said that during this campaign alone, the Mongols killed around 1.5% of the world's population at the time. So, when Indian dynasties faced the Mongols, they were up against an army that was not only strong and brutally savage, but one that approached war with an entirely different mindset. The later battles between them might never have occurred had the Mongols not first set foot on Indian soil under very special circumstances. It all began in 1221, when a Mongol force pursued Jalal al-Din Mangburni, the prince of the defeated Khwarezmian Empire, into Punjab. The Mongols fought his army there, and although Jalal al-Din managed to escape, his forces suffered heavy losses. After this battle, the Mongols decided not to push further into India to find him, due to the unfamiliar terrain and harsh conditions, and instead returned to Central Asia. However, the Mongols did not forget. In the following years, they regularly raided northern India, especially Punjab, forcing the Delhi Sultanate to divert massive resources for defense. In 1241, a Mongol army captured Lahore, one of the Sultanate's key cities, shocking the court, as Lahore was both an economic and strategic hub. Then, in 1245, they seized Multan, putting even more pressure on Delhi. During Sultan Nasiruddin Mahmud Shah's reign, 1246–1266, Delhi was in a state of chaos. India was a vast land with diverse cultures, religions, and ethnicities. Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, and Jains all coexisted, making it difficult to maintain control. Social classes often rose in rebellion against Muslim rulers from the north. While the Delhi Sultanate ruled much of northern India, other regions, such as the Rajput kingdoms, remained independent. These Rajputs fiercely resisted Sultanate rule, engaging in long and drawn-out conflicts. On top of that, places like Gujarat, Bengal, and the Deccan were also fighting to maintain their autonomy from Delhi. This constant conflict not only destabilized the region, but also opened the door for foreign invaders, especially the Mongols. By this time, the Mongols had become an increasing threat along India's borders. Although Mahmud Shah was technically in charge, the real power lay with Ghiyasuddin Balban, a shrewd vizier who had already broken the Mongol siege at Ukh. In 1246, Balban became the most influential figure in the Delhi court, effectively preventing Sultan Mahmud Shah from fully controlling political and military affairs. Balban quickly realized that the tribute system Mahmud Shah used to appease the Mongols was failing, as the northern attacks showed no signs of stopping. He concluded that the Sultanate needed a decisive shift in strategy. When Balban came to power in the mid-13th century, he adopted a more aggressive and assertive policy toward the Mongols. He reformed the existing army by recruiting not only from the slave class but also from freed warriors, creating a more diverse and balanced military force. Balban focused on equipping the army with more modern weapons and armor to improve its combat effectiveness. As the army grew stronger, Balban launched bold counterattacks, successfully recapturing Multan and Lahore from the Mongols, restoring the Sultanate's prestige. One of his wisest decisions was to welcome refugees from Mongolia, Persia, and other Central Asian regions. In the 1260s, when the Mongol civil wars broke out between the Ilkhanate and the Golden Horde, two major khanates that had formed after the death of Genghis Khan, many warriors and nobles fled to Delhi. Balban absorbed them into the Sultanate's army, gaining not only skilled fighters but also valuable insights into Mongol military tactics. This significantly strengthened Delhi's defenses. By 1270, Balban personally went to Lahore and ordered the construction of powerful frontier forts. A series of strong fortifications were built, each garrisoned with well-trained troops, forming a defensive barrier against future Mongol incursions. This marked a remarkable turning point in the reform of India's military defenses. Perhaps the Delhi Sultanate had learned a valuable lesson from the Mongol invasions of Europe. A notable example was the first Mongol invasion of Hungary, which ended in a devastating defeat for the kingdom. Hungary lay in ruins. Nearly half of its inhabited areas were destroyed by the invading armies. An estimated 15% to 25% of the population was lost, and widespread hysteria spread across Europe. The most remarkable observation, however, was that well-fortified castles proved impenetrable to the Mongol army. In fact, 5 stone castles located east of the Danube survived the invasion, proving that the Mongols could not easily capture fortified strongholds. This reinforced Balban's belief that building fortresses was a vital strategy for defending the Sultanate. The forts he ordered were constructed with thick, high stone walls, tall watchtowers, and elaborate defensive features, including traps and dugouts. They were strategically placed in locations that could be easily monitored and defended, allowing for early detection of Mongol movements. Within a few years, the northwestern frontier of the Delhi Sultanate was divided into 2 defensive regions. Prince Muhammad Khan was tasked with guarding Multan, Siwan, and Lahore, while Prince Bughra Khan took responsibility for Sunam. However, when Bughra Khan was appointed governor of Bengal, the entire responsibility for defending the frontier fell to Prince Muhammad. Balban's defensive strategies proved highly effective, successfully preventing the Mongols from advancing deeper into India. In 1279 CE, the Mongols launched an attack on Delhi's territory, but Prince Muhammad repelled them, forcing their withdrawal. In 1285, a larger Mongol force mounted a major offensive on Punjab. Prince Muhammad faced them bravely in battle, but was tragically killed. Although the Mongols plundered Lahore and Dipalpur, the regions of Multan and Ukh were successfully defended. The defensive measures Balban had implemented ultimately held firm, and the Mongols were once again forced to retreat. Balban, devastated by the loss of his son, spent the remainder of his life in grief and died in 1287. This was followed by the rise of the Khalji dynasty in 1290, under its founder Jalal al-Din Khalji, who defeated a Mongol army at Baran in 1292. However, in 1296, Jalal al-Din was assassinated by his own nephew Alauddin Khalji, who seized power with the help of two key commanders, Ulugh Khan and Zafar Khan. At the same time that Alauddin Khalji was ruling India, Duwa Khan, alongside his son Kutluk Khawaja, ruled over the Chagatai Khanate, one of the Mongol Khanates formed after the death of Genghis Khan. Duwa was particularly ambitious about expanding his territory southwards into India, much like his predecessors. There were two main reasons for Duwa Khan's interest in India. First, he could not ignore a wealthy land that was a paradise for trade, as mentioned earlier, and second, India was the only direction in which the Chagatai Khanate could expand without clashing with other Mongol realms, with other Mongol Khanates. Thus, during the reign of Alauddin Khalji, a Mongol force raided Punjab in the winter of 1297-98, but was defeated and forced to retreat by the general Ulugh Khan. Not long after, a second invasion attempt was also repelled, this time by Alauddin's other general, Zafar Khan. You might think that would have been enough to discourage the Mongols, right? But no. These defeats only made Duwa Khan more determined. After this humiliation, Duwa launched a third, fully prepared invasion with the aim of conquering India outright. In late 1299, Duwa, the ruler of the Mongol Chagatai Khanate, sent his son Kutluk Khawaja to capture Delhi. This time, the Mongols did not intend to simply raid. They sought to rule the Delhi Sultanate. During their 6-month-long march to India, they refrained from looting cities or destroying forts. At night, they were harassed by Delhi generals stationed at frontier posts such as Multan and Saiwan, but the Mongols avoided direct confrontations, determined to preserve their strength for the decisive showdown at Delhi. Eventually, the Mongols set up camp at Kili, only about 10 kilometers from Delhi's outskirts. News of their arrival spread quickly across the region. As word reached nearby villages, terrified residents fled toward the safety of Delhi's fortified walls, seeking refuge from the approaching storm. Here's the twist. Alauddin Khalji reportedly did not learn of the Mongol advance until they had already crossed the Indus River. Imagine the panic that must have swept through the capital. Without wasting a moment, Alauddin sprang into action, dispatching urgent messages to his provincial governors to send reinforcements for the defense of the capital. It became an all-hands-on-deck situation. Setting up camp near Siri, along the banks of the Yamuna River, Alauddin gathered his officers for a crucial strategy meeting. His uncle, Al-Mul, suggested that perhaps they should consider diplomacy and negotiate with the Mongols instead of risking everything in battle. After all, it seemed like the smart move, right? But Alauddin wasn't having any of it. He argued passionately that showing even the slightest sign of weakness could undermine his authority and cause his people to lose faith in him. Determined to demonstrate his resolve, Alauddin publicly declared his intention to march to Kili and face the Mongols head-on. The two forces finally confronted each other on the banks of the Yamuna River. The Mongols brought between 50,000 and 60,000 horsemen, while the Delhi army fielded around 70,000 troops, supported by 700 war elephants. Both armies deployed in the standard steppe formation, a central division flanked by two wings. The Mongol center was commanded by Kutluk Khawaja himself. The left wing was led by Hitchlock, likely a seasoned commander with expertise in cavalry maneuvers, a skill crucial for the flanking strategies that the Mongols so often employed. The right wing was under the leadership of Tamar Bugha, another experienced Mongol commander. These flanking wings were essential for encircling and outmaneuvering the enemy, a hallmark of Mongol military tactics. In addition to their main army, the Mongols positioned a separate force of 10,000 soldiers in ambush under the command of Targi. This hidden unit was intended for a surprise strike at the most critical moment, exploiting confusion and disorder in the heat of battle. The Mongols' strategic positioning, use of mobility, and reliance on speed and surprise had been the foundation of their battlefield dominance for decades. Yet, despite their careful planning, they faced stiff resistance from Alauddin Khalji's forces. The left wing of the Delhi army, commanded by Nusrat Khan, a prominent general and wazir of the Sultanate, consisted primarily of cavalry. Their speed and maneuverability were key for outflanking the Mongols, allowing them to launch swift, targeted attacks while avoiding prolonged engagements. On the right wing, Zafar Khan commanded a mixed force of cavalry, archers, and Hindu warriors. The cavalry engaged the Mongols directly, while the archers weakened the enemy from a distance. The inclusion of Hindu warriors added variety to the combat tactics, bringing depth and adaptability to the defensive line. In the center, Alauddin Khalji himself led the elite cavalry, the backbone of his army. This unit held the most critical position, protecting the heart of the formation from the Mongol charge. Alauddin's direct leadership inspired his troops and helped maintain their morale. Ahead of the center, Akat Khan commanded the vanguard, tasked with absorbing the initial Mongol assault. Ulugh Khan, leading the reserve force, was responsible for reinforcing any part of the line where Mongol pressure intensified. This layered structure created a dynamic and flexible defense against the formidable Mongol cavalry. To strengthen the front lines, elephants were stationed before each division, serving as living fortresses to absorb the brunt of the Mongol attack. The Delhi army stretched for several miles, making it difficult for Alauddin to control the battlefield from a single point. To prevent chaos, he issued a strict order. No officer was to move from their assigned position without his direct command. The penalty for disobedience was death by beheading. Despite these orders, the battle began when Alauddin's general, Zafar Khan, launched an attack on Hitchcock's unit without permission. Initially, the Mongols fought back weakly, then suddenly began to retreat. Driven by his relentless courage and confidence, Zafar Khan pursued the fleeing force for nearly 55 kilometers, leaving most of his infantry and slower cavalry far behind. It appeared that the Mongols had no strength left to fight, but this was in fact one of their most notorious and deadly tactics. The feigned retreat was a classic Mongol strategy, designed to lure their enemies into a false sense of victory before trapping them in a deadly ambush. When Zafar Khan finally realized the trap he had fallen into, he had only about 1,000 horsemen left by his side. The situation quickly worsened when Targi, with his hidden unit, attacked from behind, cutting off Zafar Khan's route back to Alauddin's main camp. You might wonder, why didn't anyone come to his aid? Some accounts suggest it was Alauddin himself who deliberately withheld support, seeing this as punishment for Zafar's disobedience. Alauddin had intended to delay the battle, hoping the Mongols would run out of supplies or that reinforcements from the east would arrive in time. But Zafar, bold and impatient, had rushed ahead, shattering that plan. Then there was Ulugh Khan, who remained passive throughout the clash. This wasn't just about battlefield tactics, it was personal. Earlier, Zafar Khan had gained immense fame by driving the Mongols out of Siwistan, while Ulugh Khan and Nusrat Khan were occupied in Gujarat. That victory placed Zafar in the spotlight, which reportedly stirred jealousy in both Alauddin and Ulugh Khan. According to the historian Ziauddin Barani, there were even whispers that they had considered blinding or poisoning Zafar to halt his rising influence. Zafar Khan knew exactly what kind of battle awaited him once he realized he was surrounded. Yet, he did not flinch. Gathering his officers, he made a grim decision. One every warrior dreads but understands is sometimes necessary. There would be no retreat. To flee was not an escape but a disgrace, and they knew Alauddin would never forgive them for showing cowardice. In that moment, they embraced their fate. They would fight to the last breath. They fought until the very end, not because it was the only option, but because it was the most honorable one. As the fighting intensified, Kutluk Khwaja witnessed the heroism and resilience of Zafar Khan and his men. He admired their spirit so much that he extended an extraordinary offer. If Zafar surrendered, he would be taken to the Chagatai Khanate not as a prisoner but with honor. Most men, facing certain defeat, might have accepted such terms. But Zafar Khan was not like most men. His loyalty to his sultan, his pride as a warrior, and his unshakable commitment to Delhi left no room for surrender. He refused outright. In the chaotic, fierce combat that followed, Zafar Khan and his 10,000 horsemen fought with unmatched bravery. According to contemporary accounts, they killed around 5,000 Mongols, a remarkable feat given the overwhelming odds. But the cost was devastating. His forces were reduced to just 200 men. In the battle's final moments, Zafar Khan made his last stand. When his horse was cut down beneath him, he continued the fight on foot. Facing Hitchlak in a dramatic duel, he engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Yet, even his valor could not alter the outcome. A well-aimed arrow pierced his armor and struck his heart, ending his courageous stand. On the left wing, Zafar Khan's son was far from idle. Taking up his father's mantle, he led a fierce countercharge that forced Tamar Buga to retreat. But Zafar Khan's son was not about to let the Mongols escape unpunished. He and his forces pursued the retreating enemy, even as they were struck by a barrage of arrows from the withdrawing soldiers. At the same time, the Mongols launched a determined assault on the center of Alauddin's army, hoping to break through. However, Alauddin's division stood firm, repelling the attack and inflicting heavy casualties on the enemy. The death of Zafar Khan, though, was a severe blow to the morale of Delhi's officers. When morning came, Alauddin's advisors urged him to withdraw to Delhi, arguing it would be safer to defend the city from behind its fortifications. But Alauddin, confident in his strategy, rejected the proposal outright. He insisted that Zafar Khan's losses were the result of disobedience, and he made it clear: if the army was to move, it would be forward, not back. Meanwhile, Kutluk Khwaja, the Mongol commander, seemed hesitant to launch another major assault. The second and third days of the standoff passed without significant fighting. Then, under the cover of night, the Mongols quietly retreated toward their homeland. Alauddin, seeing their withdrawal, allowed them to leave without pursuit and return to Delhi victorious. However, Dua Khan was far from finished. In 1303 AD, he sent a massive force of 120,000 cavalry to attack Delhi under General Taragai. Caught off guard and weakened, Alauddin quickly fortified his defenses around Siri. Using the Yamuna River and the ruins of Delhi's old fortifications as natural barriers, he ordered trenches to be dug and strongholds to be reinforced. The city withstood a 2-month Mongol siege until Taragai, frustrated and unable to break through, withdrew. In 1305, the Mongols attempted another invasion with 50,000 troops. But after Taragai's death, Alauddin dispatched 30,000 to 40,000 cavalry under Malik Nayak, who crushed the invaders in a decisive victory for Delhi. By 1306, Dua Khan launched one final assault. But Malik Kafur met the Mongol forces at the Ravi River in Nagaur and utterly destroyed them, shattering their strength in the region. Thus, Alauddin Khalji achieved what no other ruler, Eastern or Western, had ever accomplished. He repeatedly repelled and defeated large-scale Mongol invasions. The Mongols, an unstoppable force elsewhere, had swept through Russia, China, Persia, Iraq, Syria, and even parts of Europe. History shows the devastation they left behind in those lands. Had they conquered India, the subcontinent might have been set back 2 or 3 centuries in its development. Centuries of accumulated knowledge and culture could have been annihilated. Libraries, schools, temples, mosques, and even homes burned to the ground. The Mongols were unlike any other invaders. Had they won at the Yamuna, they would have wiped vast portions of India's cultural heritage off the map. If India's ancient traditions and heritage have survived to this day, a significant share of the credit must go to Alauddin Khalji, one of the greatest warrior kings in history.